Okay, so welcome everybody to this special evening of Limud, of learning. The idea of this is really to, well, I suppose there's a few different ideas. The idea is to educate ourselves and also to bring chizuk to ourselves and to those who are doing the fighting for us. If we believe, as we should, as I believe we should, if we believe that everybody does their bit for the war effort, including learning Torah, then we are doing our bit here tonight. And I'm delighted to see that we have a nice turnout here. We have another 32 people on Zoom, and hopefully those that watch it in the recording will also have some chizuk from it. The format will be as it was a million years ago, it feels like, but actually it was only just over 3 weeks ago on Hoshana Rabbah, literally 48 hours before this madness began. We had a program here where myself, Rabbi Stuart Weiss and Rav Mendel, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Wunsch? Wunsch? How does he say? How do you pronounce it? Wunsch? Wunsch? Okay. Rav Mendel, I just call him Rav Mendel because it's just easier. Okay. And he will be coming along. The three of us, we each took a topic within a broader topic, which at that time was futuristic Judaism. Sadly, this time we have to choose a different subject, and we have chosen the subject of Judaism and war. We're each going to present a different topic within that category of Judaism and war for half an hour or so, and then there'll be time about 10 minutes or so after each of the presentations for questions, and then obviously at the end of it, if the people want to stay around and ask questions, that's also fine. So that's going to be the format of it, and I'm going to kick off with Amalek. Why have I asked about Amalek? The question is, Amalek, nature or nurture? Now, the original idea was that behind me on this lovely bright wall, there was going to be a presentation of these handouts, because I've only got about 10 or 12 of them from the last time I gave this talk, which was a year or two ago. But I can't work the tech, so it's not working. So the guys on Zoom have got an advantage because they can see the screen. I'm assuming you guys on Zoom can see the screen where it says Amalek, nature or nurture. Yes. Yep. Give us a nod. Yes. Good. Yep. Excellent. Well, they can see it. You can't. But doesn't really matter. But anyway, and see how we go along. So. That's a very good idea. That's a very good idea. We probably got enough for one row. There's a problem solver for you. Okay. Right. So Amalek. We read about Amalek in the Torah. Where do we first read about Amalek, or the war with Amalek? The war with Amalek. Where do we read that?
Amalek. Samuel.
I can't hear because you're all talking at once, and I'm half deaf. So we read it, the war of Amalek, at the end of Parshat Beshalach, in Shemot 17:18. It's on the screen there for you. Vayavo Amalek vayilachem in Yisrael b'Refidim. And Amalek came and fought with Israel in this place called Refidim. Now, often when we have in the Torah, we have places, we don't really take too much notice of them because we don't know where they are exactly, and are they really relevant? What I'm going to try and explain to you and suggest to you really in the next half hour is that this war with Amalek, which took place in Refidim, was a prototype war, not necessarily against a particular nation, but against a concept, against an ideology, if you like. Those of you who read my article on Friday will know what ideology I'm referring to. We will come to that. So the question I asked at the beginning of this idea is Amalek, nature or nurture, genetic or generic? We've got some feedback here. Who's got a phone on? Is the nation of Amalek, who we fought with 3,300 and something years ago, is that a nation which is a genetic nation? In other words, is that nation something that we can only fight, or that our mitzvah to obliterate that nation only exists as long as the nation exists, i.e. it's genetic? Or is it generic? Is it that every nation like Amalek is subject to the halacha of obliterating the nation? So let's have a look and see how we can look at this. So the first idea is that Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And then if we have a look and see where were we before this happened? Vayisu kol hadat b'nei Yisrael midbar sin l'masehem al pi Hashem. The entire community of the children of Israel journeyed from the desert of Sin by Hashem's word, and they encamped in Rephidim. What happened in Rephidim? Anybody know what happened in Rephidim? Who said water? Yes, water. Oh, there wasn't any. Okay.
Very big airbase in Sinai.
There was no water. And the Torah tells us just before we see Amalek attack that the people encamped in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. And the people quarreled with Moses and they said, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said, "Why are you quarreling with me? Why are you testing Hashem?" I'm just quoting from the Torah here. I'm not making this up. The people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses. And they said, "Why have you brought us out from Egypt? You're going to make us all die of thirst." So what does Hashem say? Hashem says, "I'll tell you what, Moshe, I'll take you to a rock. You can hit the rock, and there'll be loads of water for these people." And what does the Torah tell us? Without looking at the screen or without looking at your pieces of paper, where was this rock that Moshe struck? Anybody know? Well, it says so in the Torah, actually. Hineni omeid lefanecha sham al hatzur bechorev. I shall stand there before you on the rock in Chorev. V'hikita batzur, and you shall strike the rock. V'yetzu mimenu mayim, and water will come out of it. So where was the rock? In Chorev. Where is Chorev? Sinai. Okay. Where is Rephidim compared to Sinai? Okay. How long would it take to get from Rephidim to Sinai on foot, according to Google Maps? Good guess. Very good guess, Sully. 10 hours. Would you like to guess how many minutes as well? 48, yes. According to Google Maps, it will take 10 hours and 48 minutes to walk from Rephidim to Chorev. Now, I ask you a question. Huh? Non-stop, yes. I ask you a question. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do this tremendous miracle of smacking a rock and bringing out water, why did he make him schlep for 10.5 hours from where they were? They were in Rephidim. He's got to schlep 10.5 hours and strike the rock. But worse than that, you've got to bring all the water back. Or you've got to take the people to Chorev. So there's a problem here. What's going on? So if you think about what is likely to have happened, imagine you've got a situation, you've got all these people who are thirsty and they want water. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "I'm going to give you water, but it's 10 hours away." Who's going to go and get the water? Shtarkers, right? The strong people. The young fellows are going to get all the water cans. They're going to go, they're going to bring the water, and they're going to say to the women and children and the elderly and the weak, they're going to say, you stay here in Refidim, don't worry, we'll go to Chorev, we'll go there, bring the water, and we'll bring it back to you. Reasonable? Yeah, I think that's really what's likely to have happened. Now, so off they go, and what does that leave in Refidim? Nechashalim. It leaves weak people. All the weak people were there because anybody that was strong had gone off to get the water. So we're not told anything about this battle with Amalek in Parashat Beshalach, but we are told about it where Parashat Ki. No, Ki Teitzei. You were right about the key, Philip. Ki Teitzei. Ki Teitzei. And when do we read this? We read it. It's Parashat Zachor, isn't it? Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember, this is Moshe speaking to the Jewish people before he dies. Remember that which Amalek did to you, baderech, on your way, b'tzeitchem mitzrayim, when you came out of Mitzrayim, asher korcha baderech, they met you on the way, vayezanev b'cha kol hanecheshalim acharecha. Vayezanev. What's the root of that word? Zanav, tail, right? And they attacked your tail. Who are the tail? The stragglers. The stragglers. They cut off all the stragglers at your rear. The weak ones. They attacked the weak.
That's one.
Va'ata ayef v'yagea. Can you all please mute yourselves?
I pulled it out.
Too? Thank you.
So should I switch mine off?
Correct.
And you were ayef. What's the word ayef? Tired, weary, exhausted. Hanotein le'ya'ef koach. Same word. Ayef, ya'ef. Same root. Ayef, you were weary, v'yagea, and faint. V'lo yarei Elohim. And he, Amalek, did not fear God. So, Amalek did not fear God. So, who did Amalek attack? Nechashalim. Why was there only the Nechashalim there? Because the Starkers have gone to Chorev to bring the water. So that made them opportunistic attackers to those who were weak and vulnerable. Who were likely to be left in Refidim? The women, the children, the elderly. You can see where I'm going with this, can't you? Okay. Now then, if Parshat Zachor had stopped 3 words earlier, would you say to me, hey, wait a minute, there's 3 words missing? Well, you would, because you all know Parshat Zachor off by heart. But let me say it without the last 3 words. And I want you to tell me whether you think it makes sense. You shall remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you went out of Egypt, how he happened upon you on the way, and he cut off all the stragglers at your rear when you were faint and weary. Full stop. Anything wrong with that? No. The last 3 words say, V'lo yarei Elohim, and he did not fear God. What's that got to do with anything? That's got a lot to do with everything. Because what the Pasuk is telling us in Parashat Zachor is the reason that a group of people, Amalek in this instance, attack the weak and the vulnerable is because they fear not God. Okay? There is no yirat Elohim. Now, I'm going to prove to you now, using various psukim in the Torah, that when the Torah says lo yarei Elohim, it's talking about ethical behavior. It's not talking about whether you believe or fear in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the God of the Israelites. Lo yarei Elohim means, and I'm going to show you now, means that you are behaving in a way which is unethical, even in warfare. Let's start. Those of you who've got the piece of paper in front of you. We are on source number 6 in Bereshit. Abraham said, after he had pretended that Sarah was his sister and not his wife, and she gets taken in, and they say to him, well, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us that she was your wife? We wouldn't have done anything. We would have said, hello, fine, she's your wife, we won't touch her. And what did he say? He said, no, Vayom Avraham, ki amarti rak ein yirat Elohim b'makom hazeh, v'harguni al davar ishti. Because I know, says Abraham, that there is no yirat Elohim, there's no fear of God in this place, and you would kill me for my wife. That is a behavior which is entirely unethical in every society, and in every decent society. You don't kill somebody in order to take their wife. It's unethical behavior. Avraham describes this unethical behavior as Ein Yirat Elohim b'makom hazeh. There is no fear of God in this place. The next one.
You just put in home on ways.
Source number 7. The story of
I won't interfere with
the
that.
story of Yosef.
Just don't want to miss the turning.
Can you
Once
please
we get on
mute
to
whoever
the
you
six,
are who is
it's
not
fine.
muted? Please mute. Thank you. Yosef puts his brothers in prison for 3 days. Okay. And he says after 3 days, after they've investigated whether they're spies or not, what does he say? Vayom alehem Yosef, vayom hashlishi. Yosef says on the 3rd day, of course they don't know he's Yosef at the time, Zot asu v'chayu et Elohim ani yarei. He says, I don't behave in an unethical way. He lets them go. Why? Because et Elohim ani yarei. Because I fear God. Meaning, I will act in this ethical manner and let you go because there's no reason to hold you. Because hold you what? Hold you hostage. Thank you. Why? Because I fear God. Et Elohim ani yarei. Another example where ethical behavior is described as Yirat Elohim. Next one, Shemot, chapter 1, verse 17. We're now in the story of the midwives, Puah and Shifra, who did not kill the boys. What does it say about them? Vatirena hamyaldot et Elohim. And the midwives feared God. V'lo asu kasher diber alehem melech Mitzrayim. They did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. What had he told them to do? Kill babies. Okay. Vatachayena et hayeladim. They kept the babies alive. Why did they keep the babies alive? Vatirena hamyaldot et Elohim. Because they feared God. Again, this idea of fearing God is about ethical behavior. Okay, next one. In Shemot, Yitro tells Moshe, you can't do all this work on your own. You have to get people to help you. You have to have judges. Who shall you choose as judges? And Shei Chayil, men of valor, men of substance. Yirei Elohim, people who fear God. A judge has to judge ethically. Okay, and that's another example. Shmuel Aleph, chapter 27. Those of you who are with us in Shmuel Aleph, we'll get there in a few weeks' time. David goes and he finds no, wait a minute, we want to stop there now. Just go back on there. So we've now proved, I think, with a number of sources that the idea of Yirat Elohim, fearing God, means ethical behavior. Amalek says, V'lo yarei Elohim. They did not fear God. And it's connected to Parashat Zachor, which tells us what they did. What does Parashat Zachor tell us they did? They attacked the weak. They attacked the children, the women, the elderly, all of those that had not gone to Chorev to get the water, who were waiting for their menfolk to come back with the provisions, with the water. They were opportunistically attacked. That's why it says Asher karcha b'derech. They happened upon you. B'mikre means by chance. Nothing's by chance. But for them it was by chance. They took the opportunity because they saw that you were weak, and they attacked when you were at your weakest, when you only had women and children and elderly there.
You're fighting amongst yourselves.
That's another point that yes, okay, we'll just leave that for a side, but it's not, it's a fair point. So you can see here that Amalek is we're told never to forget what Amalek did to us, and we are given the mitzvah to blot out and obliterate Amalek, and we're told why. Well, because they attacked the weak and the vulnerable. And why did they attack the weak and the vulnerable? Because they didn't fear God. Now, so we've proved now that the essence of Amalek is unethical behavior, even in warfare. Unethical behavior, even in warfare, which is, of course, what we're being accused of right now, of being disproportionate and lacking balance and all that garbage. Okay, so the unethical behavior in warfare is to attack women and children and the vulnerable. The Torah tells us it. We've seen it. We've seen it. Sadly, we've seen it in our lifetimes. Now, what about Amalek itself? How can I prove to you that Amalek is not just the nation who was the grandson of Esau? Okay, Amalek was the grandson of Esau. The original Amalek was the grandson of Esau. But I'm suggesting to you that it's not just the genetic Amalek that we are fighting here, because the Torah describes Amalek in various different places where it cannot possibly be just that nation. So, for example, we know, don't we, from Shmuel Aleph, that King Saul had a commandment to wipe out Amalek. And did he do it? Who did he leave behind? He left behind, not the women, no, the king, whose name was Agag. He left Agag alive. How many people is Agag? One. Okay, so David Amalek was contemporaneous with Shaul. Agreed? Okay, Shaul. David was the successor to Shaul. Shaul was chasing David, etc., etc. So we know that David and Shaul lived contemporaneously. David Amalek, we're now in source 10, for those of you who've got the sheet, goes up and raids the Geshurites, the Gizrites, and the Amalekites. Okay? He goes to the Amalekites. And we will see that there are loads of them. It's impossible in that period of time when Shaul wiped out Amalek, where there was only one of them left, for them to be these huge numbers of Amalekites just a few years later. Impossible. Can't be. Okay? So when we see in Shmuel Aleph chapter 27 that David was fighting against the Amalekites, who was he fighting against? It can't have been the direct descendants of Agag, because they would have been about 7 years old or something, 10 years old, and there would have been about 2 or 3 of them. There couldn't have been a whole bunch of them like there were told about. So there can't be genetic Amalekites there. Okay? We then go to another source in Shmuel Aleph. There's another story. I haven't got time to go in it now because I've got to make this short. There's another story there where Amalek, it's a place called Ziklag. Okay, we're going to come to it in a few couple of months, probably in our Shmuel Aleph Shir, chapter 30. Amalek captures the inhabitants of Ziklag. But who does this Amalek capture? This whole people of Amalek. By the way, there still can't be the children of Agag, because it's only 10, 15 years later, 20 years later at the most. So who does they get? Does anybody know the story of Ziklag? Have a guess who Amalek captures. Have a guess.
Women and children.
Women and children. Well done, Philip. Women and children again. And they are described as Amalek. Now, they can't be genetic Amalekites because they were all wiped out bar one. So we know from the numbers game that Amalek does not necessarily always refer to genetic Amalek. Now have a look at the geography of Amalek. Source number 12. You'll find various different places that Amalek pops up in the Torah and in Tanakh. Okay, in the Torah itself, the Western Sinai Desert in Beshalach, northern Negev near Kadesh Barnea in Shlach Lecha, and east of the Dead Sea in Parshat Balak. They are all over the place. Okay, they're a nomadic nation. They're a nomadic tribe. They don't have any particular territory that they're defending. What are they doing? They're being opportunistic. They're going from one place to another, attacking whoever they possibly can. And who are they attacking? The weak and the vulnerable. Whoever they find, they're not interested really where it is, whether it's the Negev, whether it's in Sinai Desert, whether it's the Dead Sea, they don't care. Just wherever they can maraud and wherever they can act in this Lo Yareh Elokim manner, that's what they do. Now, look at who they ally themselves with. Source number 13. All sorts of different people. Whoever will have them. Moab, at the time of Ehud, in Shoftim. They attack Ephraim at the time of Dvorah. They join in with Midian at the time of Gidon. These are all different Shoftim. And then, of course, they attack Shaul and they attack David later on in Sefer Shmuel. So they're allied to whoever is fighting the Jews at the time Amalek allies itself with. Okay, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter whether it's Moab or Midian or the Plishtim. Whoever it is that they are fighting the Jews, we're with you. You hate the Jews, I'm your friend. This is Amalek. This is the idea. So they have no territory. They have no allegiances to anybody. Their whole focus is to fight the Israelites, and particularly the weak and vulnerable. That's what they do. That is their modus operandi. Who is their designated God? Very interesting. Have a look in Sefer Shoftim, chapter 10, verse 6. This is source number 14 here. The children of Israel continue to do that which displeased the Lord. What did they displease the Lord by doing? Idol worship. And this pasuk then goes and lists all the different gods that our ancestors served. The Baalim and the Ashtaroth, the gods of Aram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of Ammon, the gods of Plishtim. Doesn't say the gods of Amalek, because they don't have one. They don't have a specific god either, because their philosophy, their ideology is only one thing, and that is to attack the weak and the vulnerable. At the end, you can ask me questions, Philip. Their whole ideology is to attack the weak and the vulnerable, and specifically the weak and the vulnerable of Israel. Okay, so the Lord, with this chapter 15, we're told there we have to go. This pasuk here, I'm going to read it out in its entirety because it's very important. Shmuel Aleph, chapter 15, verse 18. Vayishlachacha Adonai baderech, and the Lord sent you on a mission. Vayomer, and he said, Lech vehitcharamta et achataim et Amalek. This is Shmuel speaking to Shaul after he has failed in his mission to wipe out Amalek completely. He says, God sent you on a mission and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners. Which sinners? Et Amalek. Amalek. V'nilchamta bo, and you shall wage war against him, it, Amalek, ad kalotam otam, until you utterly destroy them. That was the commandment given to Shaul HaMelech against Amalek. And it's not difficult to see, because you don't find this instruction against any other nation, that we are to utterly destroy every single trace of them. Why is it that Amalek has to be utterly destroyed? We are told in Parshat Zachor, because they attacked you, because they attacked you when you were vulnerable, when you only had women and children and the elderly there. Velo yarei Elohim, and they did not fear God. They were an unethical people to their core. They had no particular allegiance to a God. They weren't fighting a religious war. Whatever they say, they were not fighting a religious war. They didn't have a God. What their God was to fight against the Jews. They didn't even have a territory. They didn't care where they went. They popped up wherever they possibly could in order to attack vulnerable people. And this idea of Amalek being the nation which is so low that its morals are so lacking that they attack women and children and elderly and vulnerable, not as part of the whole, but by choice. That is what makes Amalek so despicable. The fact that the Lo Yarei Elohim, as far as they're concerned, there is no God. Don't be fooled by the religious coat that is put on Amalek, on today's Amalek. This is not a religious war, nor is this a territorial war. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That won't be good enough either. Chas v'chalila. What they want to do is to kill Jews. They want to kill Israelis, but they really want to kill Jews. You heard, I'm sure, or if you didn't hear it, you read about it. This WhatsApp message that this terrorist wrote to his mother, how proud he was. I killed 10 Jews. Didn't say I killed 10 Israelis. I killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. That's what they want to do. They want to kill Jews. This is Amalek. Amalek was a genetic nation at one time. Amalek is no longer just a genetic nation. Amalek is anybody that fits the bill of Amalek. Anybody that fits the bill that attacks weak, that attacks women and children and babies and the elderly and don't care about the morals of the world and just want to pop up wherever they possibly can and kill Jews, that is Amalek. That is Amalek. And we have a responsibility to destroy them. We do it every year. We play at it, don't we? Come on, boo! Yeah, and we're all messing around with bang, but we're not really doing anything, are we? It's all symbolic. But right now, it's no longer symbolic, is it? Now we have an opportunity, first and foremost, to save our own lives, to save the lives of our family, and that's what our incredibly brave soldiers are doing right now on our behalf. But they're also fulfilling the mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They are going out there to destroy every last remnant of Amalek that we can find. That's the challenge that we have today, is to root out every single last remnant of Amalek. Zachor et asher asa Amalek. Remember that which Amalek did to you. Asher karcha baderech, met you on the way, but b'tzeitchem miMitzrayim, when you came out of Egypt. Where were you going when you came out of Egypt? You were doing nobody any harm. You were just going through the land, through the desert, on your way to the promised land. And what did they do? They attacked the weak and the vulnerable, and they did not fear God. And that's why we have to wipe them out. We're not a wiping out sort of people. Certainly not today. We're not a wiping out sort of people. We're all woolly Westerners, aren't we? Because we're all come from those kind of philosophies. But now we have to keep the mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to perform that mitzvah, or our soldiers have to do it on our behalf, and we have to give them every support. Because I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, Amalek is alive and well in the form of Hamas, and we have to destroy every last one of them. Okay. Questions? Paul. Okay, I mean, that's possibly true, but that doesn't detract from the fact that Shaul was told to do something by Shmuel through Shmuel by the word of God, and he didn't do it. Now, but had he done it, we wouldn't have had somebody called Haman Ha-Agagi. So had he done his job, we wouldn't have had Haman. Now you say, well, we wouldn't have had Haman, we wouldn't have had Purim. Well, we wouldn't want to do without Purim. But so yeah, he had to get rid of Amalek. Anybody else? Yeah, Julie.
Even if we do here, what we do about the military ideology that the President and the United States and the barricading students into the university. And people are really scared that ideology is not just here, it's like a
it is indeed. An ideology is very difficult to kill. You're absolutely right. Right now, this is survival mode. We have to get into there and destroy the brain cells of the ideology. Very, very difficult thing to do, because most of those people who are in demonstrating in the universities in America and in the UK and across Europe, and 100,000 people in the streets of London shouting jihad and all that stuff, they don't understand one solitary thing about what's going on. They have one thing in common, and that is anti-Semitism. It is pure anti-Semitism. You can dress it up, like Rabbi Sachs said, in every generation, anti-Semitism is dressed up in a different way. In our generation, it's dressed up as anti-Zionism, but it's anti-Semitism. Let's call it for what it is. Yes, Hilary.
Can you repeat the questions, please?
got to be nurtured rather than nature. From the point of view, it's how you're brought up with what you're taught and what you're shown from your parents.
Well, that is true. That is true. I mean, you can't separate the upbringing. I think it was Yitzhak Shamir who got himself in a bit of trouble by saying that the Poles drank in anti-Semitism with their mother's milk. Meaning that from the time they were born, they were inculcated. And to be fair, that's what these people have had. They've had this ideology foisted upon them. And as Judy said, we have to deal with the ideology. Right now, we've got to deal with the physicality of it. How we deal with the ideology is another question for another day. One more question. Yes,
Jonathan, can I raise a question from the Zoom?
One sec. We'll come to you in a minute. Yes, Hannah.
Getting to Hillary's question, wiping out Amalek wasn't just about wiping out people. It was about wiping out all their animals also. So animals do not learn from a book, but they were evil because of the association with the people that they were around. And I would also like to say, Yirat Hashem is not because they attacked the weak. Yes, they did. The weak and the but Yirat Hashem was because that was the first battle
in Mandarin,
in Israel, after the miracle of Yam Suf, after just
a piece of chocolate
nation came out against
later.
This empire, this Egyptian empire, which we again see today, Israel fighting a massive empire of Arabs, billion Arabs, and that's the Yirat Shamayim.
So that's Rashi's explanation. Okay, so that's a Rashi explanation, which is well known. Yes, Brian.
Right, Jonathan, what marvelous talk on Georgia talk. Remember, what does it say in Parshat Amalek, which people remember? It says, remember, but do not forget. And I think part of the problem is that people have forgotten what Hamas was standing for. Perhaps some of the, in the other incursions when the Palestine Islamic Jihad was involved, we took our eye off the ball. We forgot exactly what you said, that Hamas is Amalek. So remember, but do not ever forget.
Well, I think that's a very fair point, because, you know, those of you who didn't hear, Brian Sofa said that we're reading Parashat. I'm going to stop now because we've run over time. Parashat Amalek, Parashat Zachor says, remember what Amalek did? Lo tishkach, don't forget. How can you not forget if you remember? Well, we took, as Brian said, perhaps over the centuries, various times in our history, and perhaps recently, we took our eye off the ball, and for a short period of time, we forgot exactly what we were dealing with. What we're dealing with is Amalek. Thank you very much.
Alperins.
Who?
Alperins.
Okay, I'm gonna